Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at Breakdance and how to set up global settings for Breakdance. The purpose of this video is to walk you through Breakdance global settings and to give you what I consider my best recommendation for setting up Breakdance for faster projects. If you want to be able to work faster on your project, stick around and learn how to set up Breakdance to enable you work very fast. One thing I'm going to assure you is that by the end of this video, you're going to learn things that is going to make working on project much easier and much faster. Let's begin. Now, I'm going with the assumption that we have a design in mind. So you have a project you want to work on, and then you are given a design. You're given a Figma file, or you already have your own file, your own design. So because that is where all good designs start, you have to have a picture of what you want, and that picture has to include all the instruction, all the information that is going to make up the website. So we're going to be using the Breakdance website as a dummy project we're going to be setting up the global settings for. So first of all, let's go back to Breakdance, and then to access the global settings, you hit these three dots here and go to global settings. And let's take a look at what we're going to do. Now, the first thing is we're going to deal with the color, and we are going to set up the colors for this project. So now we need the brand color. And the brand color is usually the primary color. And then I'm going to go here, and to get this color, I have a tool that I can use and to pick the color. And then, of course, if you have your project, you should have been given the color. So that shouldn't be a big deal. So I'm going to come here and paste that color. And then for our text, you can leave the text blank because there's a default text color. So normally, I would recommend leaving the text. But if you have a design that you want the text to be black, completely black, you want the body text to be black, and then you can set the text color. Now for our heading colors, we want our heading color to be really dark, okay? So I'm going to set it all the way down here. And then for the links, I'm just going to leave the links for now, and I'll allow it to be default. We can come back to that. And then the background here refers to the background of your whole site. So sometimes you want to give your whole site a certain background, all the site. Now, for instance, you can see that the Breakdance site has a background, a certain background color for the site. And I really can't tell here if this is the background or if white is the background. But you want to choose one of these and give it a background color. So let's go with white as our background color. So I assume that this is just the background of this particular section, and then this white is the typical background. But it really doesn't matter in this case because there's a lot of segmentation with different backgrounds. And now we're going to move to the next one, which is the color palette. Now the color palette gives you the option to create colors that are not available here. It would be nice if we have more preset colors, okay? But then because we do not have that, we're going to create another color. So let's take a look at what color do we want to create here. Now the first thing I'm seeing here is this color. Now this color is something I would like to call an accent color. And so we're going to create a primary color, which is, we have a primary color which is the yellow. And do we have the light version of that primary color? No. So we do not need a light version of the primary color. The accent color, we just have one. So I'm going to come in here, and then I'm going to add a color. And I want to just pick that color quickly. And let me copy that. And that color, I'm going to call it accent. And I'm going to paste in that color there. Yep. So once you paste it, it's done. Okay. And then the next thing I want to look at is where are the other colors. We have a dark, which is the black color. So I'm going to call that, I'm going to add a color, and then I'm going to call that shade dark, and then that will be a pure black color. And then let's move down again. And I want to go in order of, brightness. Like we have the shade dark. Now look at this. This looks like what I would call the shade, okay, because it's not as dark as the other one. So I'm just gonna give it another color. I'm just gonna call it shade, and I want to pick that color, and then I'm gonna put here, and then I'm gonna add another color because I've seen something else here. So this is shade, and this is shade medium. Okay, so this is a medium of that, is a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to pick that and put here, and then I'm going to call it shade medium. And now I have another one here. This is just a little bit brighter than this, so it probably should have been the same because the variance is not that much. But since we already have it here, like I said, this is a project, so I'm going to call it shade light. And because it's still a shade, I'm going to put that color there. And now if we look at this, we have this color here for the text that is on the dark background. It's not exactly white, so I'll call this shade ultra light. So I'm just going to pick it. It's not white, it's not dark, it's a good color to use for a dark background. So I'm just going to call it shade ultra light, and I'll put that there. So what other color do we have? So it seems we have covered the colors there, and we don't have to bother with the colors for the icons. Perhaps we don't, maybe, but then if you have to choose this, then you will have to select these colors. But these colors are not colors that you repeat throughout the website, are they? Not necessarily. But then if you really needed to put these colors on the website, for example, I can take just the first one, and I'm not going to add all of them. I'm just going to call it icon color 1, and then I'm going to paste that, and then I will do the same for all of them, but I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm just giving you an idea that you can do that for all of them. So you give it icon color 1, icon color 2, or icon color green, or icon green, because when you're looking at the color palette, these colors are going to show. But usually it's a good idea to give it call it the name of the color, depending on how you want to do it. Now I've set up the colors. There is one more color that I notice here. It is the button hover color. You can see that it's quite different from the rest of the color. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click that button because it needs to be hovered to see it, and then I'm going to click on hover, and I will use my color dropper to pick that color, and then I'm just going to copy that color, and then I'm going to call it button hover color because the button is already using a shade dark. So I'm just going to say, should I say shade hover? Maybe. So I'm just going to say shade hover, and I'm going to paste that color there. So then we have all our preset colors. I'm going to save changes. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add I'm going to add a section here, and then I'm going to add a div, and then I'm going to make that div, let's say 100%. So I'm going to go to container and make it 100%. Now this is going to give us an idea of how to set up our site. The next thing I'm going to do is to go in and choose a color. So I want to choose, let's say, my shade ultra light. I just need this to have a background, so I can just reduce the opacity of that. And the next thing I'm going to do is to start adding the elements that will help us to set up more of these global settings. The first thing I'm going to add is a button. So I'm going to add 2 buttons. So let's do that. First button, just click here to duplicate it. I want to arrange these buttons properly, so I'm just going to add a div there, or let me just add a column and then 2 columns and drag these buttons inside those columns. Actually, I'm going to move this all the way here, reduce this column and move this button here, and I want to lay out this horizontally, so I'm just going to align it to the left. I'm going to align it there and give it a gap of 2 rem. Or let's give it a 1.5. Next thing I'm going to do is to add text. So we're going to add the heading. So I'm going to add the H. This is the H1 by default, but I'm still going to give it a tag of H1. Then I'm going to duplicate it 4 times. Now that is to give us from H1 to H4. And typically on most websites, you don't want to exceed, H4. I mean, in a few cases you get up to H5. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to stop at H4. You can go ahead and add as many H's as you want, yeah, if that is so. H6, yeah, that's the last. So for this I'm going to make it H2, for this I'm going to make it H3, and this I'm going to make it H4, and I'm going to just space it out by giving it a gap of, let's say, 3 rem. Okay, So let's space it out maybe 2. I think these buttons we could just leave it as to start like that. The next thing we need is a text, a body text. So I'm going to go in here and add a text, and I just want to copy some lorem ipsum and put in that text, and that's going to give me an idea of my body text size. It seems our column, a div, is a little bit too dark, so I'm still going to reduce this a little bit more. Now the reason I'm giving this a color is to give us an idea of the site width, because we want to use this to, you know, see our site width, because that is one of the things we're gonna set up. Now I'm gonna just make sure I select that div. Okay, let's go up one level, and I want to give it a padding. So let's just give it a padding of let's say 1.4 rem all around. Okay, just to make it look a little neat. Let's go to the buttons. So here we have, let's move all the way to the top first. Here we have a button, and I'm just gonna eyeball this. If maybe this looks like 10 pixel or 5 pixel. So the button is dark, the primary button is black. As a matter of fact, I think we have a secondary button here, which is kind of like a call to action, which is transparent or yellow. So let's move all the way to see if there's any other button. So we have another button that is white. So we have more than one type of button. So but we're going to set, we just have to set the primary and the secondary buttons. Then you also have the option to create a custom button. So what I'm going to do is to set, since this is a CTA and it is something that is used maybe just once, and this sort of button might be used more than once, something like this on a dark background. So there's a bit of a dilemma here because we have just 2 buttons to set. So I'm going to set my primary color, and then I'm going to just choose that shade. Okay, and then if you hover here, you're going to see the hover state. So if I click here, we're now editing the hover state for that color, for that, you know, property alone. And you know, I kind of like this about Breakdance because you don't activate a general hover for everything on the page. You just, you know, edit that particular property. So now I want to go to my shade hover. So you see how easy it is that once you set up your colors, it's easy for you to set up the other items. Now this button, I think everything just looks normal. The radius looks normal, and take note, you don't need to select it to be able to style it because we are styling the global settings. So now I'm going to go to custom, and then the corner radius, I just want to put 10 pixel. So that is kind of how it is there. Maybe a little bit, this my own border radius is a little bit much more, so I'm just going to make it 5 pixel. Now that is all for the buttons. Now I'm going to select this button, the second one, and that second button I want it to be a secondary button so I can style it, because this is primary button by default. For the secondary button, I think I'm going to go ahead and style it as this. So the secondary button is going to have a transparent background, but then let's go there. The typography is going to be, should we use here? We're going to use a dark. So the typography is going to be, let's use for our heading. So I'm going to go out of the typography, and then I'm going to go to the corners also, and I'm going to just give it the same 5 pixel. And the outline, I'm going to turn it on to have outline, and the color is still going to be the dark color. So we call it shade dark, and the width of the outline, I'm going to make mine 2 pixels. So let's see. Yep. So now we have that, and when we hover on it, the text is going to turn black, and the text is going to turn white. So let's go in and then close this as primary, typography, color, and then we're going to click on the hover color, and we're going to choose background color, which is white. Of course, we don't have a white preset here. You can always, you know, just choose a white. So we have that. Now this is global. It's going to affect all the buttons on the site. Now we are done with that. Now the next thing we're going to do is the typography, but we're going to skip that because that is the most important aspect. I want to do that last. So stick around because there's some very advanced techniques that I'm going to show you after showing you the basic technique. So stick around. So for the forms, it is pretty straightforward. If you have a design on the site, and let's say for here I put in the form, so we have a form builder, and that form has a style, a specific style that you want all your forms to be. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here, and I'm going to click to go to the, so we have the name. You can see that this is a style for the form, and you want basically all your forms on the site to have the same styling. So we're going to attempt to style this way. I'm going to go back here, and for the name, for the typography, for the label, I'm going to go in the typography, advanced, and make it uppercase. Let's look at it again, and a font is not too thick. Okay, so I think we can leave it like that. It's just a different typeface. The color is okay. And the next thing we're going to do is to look at the field. Now in their own case, the field is kind of light, very light gray. And so what I'm going to do is to give my form a background color of white so that we can, style this. And I think I would like to give it a padding also. So I'm just going to give it a padding of 2 rem all around, because I want us to have an idea of what the form looks like. Now for the field, I'm going to go here, and the background, I want to choose this ultra light color, but then we don't have a color as like this. So what I'm going to do is to just put that, try to eyeball it, get something like that, and then I'm going to add it to the preset. I'm just going to call it ultra light gray. So just that, and I have that color. Now let's go back. And for the placeholders, let's see, we don't have a placeholder in this form, so we really can't tell. So what I'm going to do is to quickly go to the form. I'm just going to go here for the name, label, advanced, and then I've seen placeholder. So I'm just going to write placeholder there, because I want to just copy it and paste. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it in the email. Advanced, placeholder. I'm going to go to message, advanced, placeholder. So now we have a placeholder text, and we can take a look at if we need to style it. So I think the default is okay. All right, now what's the next thing? So we have our button, the submit button, and it's kind of full width. I'm not quite sure if they want that to be like that on all the forms. So I'm just going to go to the submit button, and then I'm going to make it full width. And for the text, it looks a little bit bigger here. I would like to just quickly know the font size for that, and it's like 20. And I'm going to go back, and then styles, typography, font size. Now for the font size, I just gonna make it 20 pixel. Now normally I would recommend you use rem for certain things, but for this you don't want this to change for any reason. You just want it to be 20 pixel all the time. So for this sort of stuff, when we get to typography, you're gonna learn a lot about this stuff using rem and all. I think we're done there. But then for our form, we can see that there are sharp corners. We don't have rounded edges, and even these other ones, the inputs. So let's start here. So this is going to be square, and then let's go back to the fields, the borders, and I'm just going to make the border radius 0, and then that flattens it out. So I think we are done styling the form. So this form is going to be the default styling for any form we add on our page. So if I go in here and add another form, you can see that it's going to take up exact same design. You can see it takes up exact same design. Everything is the same, except for the fact that in this one I've already put a background image, a background and a padding on the styling. So that is not part of the global styling. Let me take that out. Now the next thing we are going to do is to go for the typography. I'm going to quickly move this column to this other side so that I can just work with this, because I want this to be at the top even when it collapses. But before we do anything with the typography, one important thing, one of the first things you should do on your site is to determine your site's width. Okay, now let's go back to Breakdance. And how do you determine your site's width? For here, the heading is basically age to age, so that doesn't give us an idea of what the site width is, but these will give you an idea of what the site width is. So let's see. So it begins here and ends here. You can see all the content begins and ends there. So I'm going to check what the site width is by selecting the section, and the section is what is going to enable me to know what the site width is. So that is the section's inner wrap, you can see. So you want to select the one that has that, all those paddings there, and that inner wrap has a width of 1160 plus 20 plus 20, because the paddings have to account for the site width. Now Breakdance default site width is 1120. So but this is 1160. That means the site width here is 1200, because 1160 plus 20 plus 20 is going to give you 1200. So we're going to go ahead and set that as our site width. Remember, this is our project. This is a dummy project. We are building a global options, a global styling for. So we need to set the global site width. So that means all the containers, all the section elements will have that same width. So you're going to go to containers and you're going to go to section and then give it 1200, and that is going to give you the site width. If I turn it off, remember, look at that, and then if I turn it back on, it's 1200. So we have our site width. Now we're going to move into the typography, and before we do that, what I want to say is this: we want to be using rem. And the reason we're going to be using rem, I'm going to quickly demonstrate to you why we're going to be using rem. So I'm going to go to the front end and show you something. Now we have our heading here, and all of them I presume are using pixels. So these probably the font size, if you go to the font size and check this all the way up to the base font size, you can see it's using 16 pixels. So by inheritance, all of them are using pixel. Now, what's the problem with pixel? Don't use pixel because it is not accessible. Except there's a real reason you don't want that font size to change no matter what, which could be a very poor, you could result in a very poor user experience. Now, I'm going to go to the browser and I'm going to go to settings. Now, if under browser settings, people have the option to change their font size. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this here so you can see now. Now, if I come here and change my font size to large, or very large, you can see that it's not changing. If I change it to very small, you can see that the font on the browser settings, okay, see how tiny it is, see, but ours still remain the same. And why are things shifting here as if the font size has changed? No, it is the padding that I gave this in pixels, or sorry, the paddings I gave in rem, that is what is changing, because the rem unit changes based on these settings. Now, I don't want to go into the technicality of it, okay? Now, so I'm going to move this aside, and I'm going to go in and give, and start setting up the typography, and I want you to check the difference. This shows you that using pixel does not help people with visual disability to change the browser font size for the website. So if they change it, nothing will change, and it's going to be a source of frustration for users like that. So what you want to do is to make sure that, let's close all this. Now, what we're going to do, the first thing you want to do is to set your base font size. And typically the base font size is usually 16 pixels, as you've seen. But I will not recommend you to use pixels. I will recommend you to use rems. But sometimes working with rems can be quite, tricky, because you want to know, okay, you change it to rem, but you know the value in pixels. So what is 16 pixels? What is 16 pixel in rem? Is kind of difficult. A lot of times you just want to go online and just Google it, and you can work like that because you're going to be doing a lot of work, using values in rem. And one easy way to solve this issue, some people argue that it's probably not a good idea, but there is really no solid argument for it, for or against it, is that you should not change the scaling, the pixel to rem scale. But that is exactly what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to go to code, and then I'm going to add a style sheet. I'm going to change the HTML font size to 62.5%. Now this is going to cause one rem to default to 10 pixel, and that is going to enable us to be able to work faster throughout the website. So if you want 24 pixel, you just know it's 2.4 rem. If you want 10 pixel, it's 1 rem. If you want 16 pixel, like we're going to set for our base font size, Okay, so let's look at this. And how do I know that this is supposed to be a base font size? Because take a look at this. We have a typography, and you can see that the normal font size here, if I check it out, has a font size of 16. So that gives us an idea. But we also have other font sizes. We have like this that are big. Okay, so let's take note of this. This is 20. We have these that is 24. So all this, we're going to set up a typography so that when we want to work, it's going to be a breeze to work with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is to set up the base font size of 1.6 rem, and then I'm going to go into advanced. I'm going to go into body, and under body I'm going to go into advanced again, and then I'm going to set the line height to 1.5. Now 1.5 is usually, you know, a good value for the line height. You want your line height to be spaced, but some people could go up to 1.8 depending on the kind of site they are building. But because we are working with this, I think here it looks like 1.5. I'm not going to go checking it, but I'm just going to leave mine at 1.5, which is a good and decent spacing for your body text. Now let's quickly check that front end and see. Now that we have set the base font size to be in rem, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this, and then I'm going to bring that settings again. Now I'm going to change this to large. You can see what is happening, that this, even the button, you know, grows. So you have someone with accessibility issues coming to change the browser font size, and you can see that they all respond to it, including the table. You can see, so this is the reason you should not use pixels, because pixels makes everything you know, inaccessible. So I'm going to close this now that I've shown you that. I'm going to close this because I don't think I will need it anymore. Now we're going to set up the responsiveness of our heading typography, because that is the main thing. The body text doesn't need to change, but the heading typography needs to change as we move from viewport to viewport. So now what we're going to do is to use the ratio here. And then how are we going to do it? If you move this slider, you can see how this changes. This ratio, you know, deals with the variation between the font sizes. So if you put it at 1, it means that all of them, you know, increments by a value of times 1. So basically the value of the H3 is the value of the H4 times 1. So it's the same, and it's still the same up here. If we do 0.2, that means the value of H3 is equal to the value of H4 times 1.2. So you see, and then this also, you know, does the same thing. The value of the H2 is the same as the value of the H3 times 1.2, and the same thing. Now, there are standards when it comes to the ratio for typography scale. And if you go to a website called typescale.com, unfortunately my address bar is not showing. It's called type-scale.com. You can see the different type scales, and you have the you know, these minor second, major second, and all that, even up to the golden ratio. Now the one that is the most popular, or the one I would normally recommend, is the perfect fourth. So that is what we are going to be using. We're not taking anything from here. I'm just showing that these are standard stuff. It's 1.333. So we're going to go back to Breakdance, and then I'm going to put 1.333 there. And then that is going to scale our typography accordingly. Now these values are going to change as you move from one breakpoint to another, or should change, because it's not automatically responsive. So if I hold this and move this, you can see that it's not a fluid typography. It's not responsible for making it fluid. It's responsible for the variance between the headings. Okay, so what am I going to do now? So I'm going to move to the different breakpoints, and then here, this breakpoint, you're thinking that, oh, perhaps your heading is okay and doesn't need to be bigger than this, okay, at this breakpoint. But if I move to the next breakpoint, I will probably want my heading to be smaller than this. But before I do that, let me just put in a small, just put something there, and let's have the impression, you know, an idea of what these headings will look like if they have some real text in it. Okay, put that there, and put this here. So it's going to give us an idea of how this looks at certain breakpoint. This looks okay, and I think they're okay, but at this breakpoint I want them to start scaling down. So at this breakpoint you want to just eyeball it. So I'm going to go like, this was 1.33, but I think at this breakpoint we can go all the way down to 1.3 or 1.2, say 8 at that breakpoint, and everything is going to scale. And at this breakpoint, I can go all the way down to 1.22, and then at the very lowest breakpoint I can go to 1.18. So you can see that the typography scales as we go down the breakpoints. So that automatically solves the issue with your typography. Now I'm going to save this, and then we're going to go to the front end. Now let's look at something. Refresh that. Now notice that we were following this, okay, and our H1 here. Before that, let me just quickly change my heading fonts. Now the heading font for Breakdance uses Futura, and Futura is a custom font, you know. So if I come here to check it, the font family, you see the font family is Futura. Okay, so Futura is not a Google font, we don't have it, so we are not going to use it. But then I'm going to show you, if you wanted to add a custom font to Breakdance, you could go into the preference, and then you could go into custom fonts and then upload your Futura if you had it, or any font you want to use, and then it's going to show up in the list. But then since we don't have it, I'm going to just put in my favorite font, which is Poppins, for the heading, just because it looks nice. Okay, that looks good. Now what I'm showing you is just the basic ones. You're finished setting up and you're done. But what if you have a site like this, that there was a specification for the headings, and then for the Breakdance you have this is 80 pixels. Now how do we get this to be 80 pixels? Because if I come here and check this, it's going to be 66 pixels, and we want 80. So I'm going to pay attention to that. 66.58. We need it to be 80. Now if I click on this, you can see that the font size here has a variable var BDE Breakdance element. I presume that is what it means. So this is the font size. We need to take it all the way up to 80. Now if you come in here and go to advanced, now what some people will do, H1, and then they'll go here and put 80 pixel. Okay, let's say they put 80 pixel, or they put 8 rem. Say, okay, we're using rem, let's put 8 rem. That's 80 pixel. Now check what is going to happen. If I move this scaling, you see it's no longer affecting it. That scaling no longer works for that one. So you never want to override that way, because you're going to lose that scaling. The other fonts are scaling, but the one I change, the override the text, you know, size, the font size, it's not working. So what are you going to do? You don't do that. Let's close that. Don't do it like that. I'm going to show you what to do. So now this font size as it stands is 66.58. So I'm just going to call it 66.6. But what do we need to bring it up to 80? So we need a value that we can multiply by 8 to bring it up to 80. So in essential, we need a value that we can multiply by this font size to bring it up to 80. So I'm going to go to a site called mathway.com/algebra and just going to, you know, type something. So I'm going to say 56.6 times what? Okay, times x. So we don't know that thing. We want to multiply it to give us 80. So I'm going to just click there and it's going to solve it. So it's telling me that what I need, x should be equal to 1.41. So I'm just going to round it up to 1.42. So that means I need to multiply that font size by 1.41 to give me 80. So if I pull up my calculator and just say 56.6 times 1.41, you see it gives me roughly 80. Okay, so so I'm gonna just round it up to 1.42. Now how do we bring that in? I'm gonna right click here and then I'm gonna copy the value, okay, of the H1 size, and I wanna just do a calc, and then I'm gonna put that there and multiply it by 1.42 because that's what we had, right? I'm going to copy that value, and now I will come here, go to heading. Now take note, I'm going to put this in the font size, and that seems to be working. Then I'll save it. Let's look at the front end if we have that font size. So I'm going to refresh that. Nothing is working. Okay, let's see that again. And of course it's not working because we are on the wrong breakpoint. So I'm just going to cut this out, clean that out. Let's move to the breakpoint where we're supposed to be on the all device. Okay, now let's try that again. I'm going to go there, advanced headings, H1, and change this to custom, and then I'm going to paste that. But see what is happening. It's smaller. You see, pasting that there obviously doesn't work. And if I refresh this, you can see that it's smaller instead of being bigger. You see, but then what's the problem? You can see that this grays out the variable for the font size, for the H1 font size, because we are pasting it in the H1 font size, and the H1 font size picks its value from the H1 font size. So because we are pasting it here, this variable is no longer available. It's no longer working. Okay, it's not defined. So what we're going to do is we can't paste this here. So I'm going to remove it from there. Instead of pasting it there, because now we want to, we're looking at a custom heading size, we have to create a preset. So I'm going to go here and create a typography preset. I'm going to call this my custom H1. And then for the font size, I'm going to give it that same font size. I'm going to paste it there. Now, so I now have my preset called custom H1. Now I'm going to go into that advanced headings H1, and then instead of pasting a value, I'm just going to choose that preset, and you can see that that preset applies. So let's save it and take a look at the front end and see what size it is. So now that gives us 94. That is wrong, and that is where the mistake is. So I did 56.6. It was 66.58. Okay, let me confirm that again. 66.583. So I'm just going to round it up to 58. So let's find X again, and that is 1.201. So I'm just going to make it 1 point, let's say 22. All right. So so that calculation in our preset, I'm going to just change that to that 42 to 2, and then I'm going to go back to the heading. Of course, I didn't need to remove it because it would still, I would have updated and choose that value, that preset. And I'm going to save this, and let's refresh, and then I'm going to check it. You can see we have 81. That is about, because I rounded off some stuff, so it's just about, you're not going to have pixel perfect 80. But the good thing about this is that it respects the ratio. It hooks into the base size and the ratio system, so that even when I reduce, you can see that it reduces also, unlike when I had coded the value in here. But because I'm using that calculation hooking into the preset, which uses the the variable for the heading and multiplying it by that number, it hooks into the ratio system, and then it scales also, but we still have our 80. Okay, so if I go into my preset and just make this, let's say 2, so let's just do 2, not 22, and that gives us 79.9, which is just about 80. So now, so we're done with that, and then for the next one, we have this, which is the H2, and the H2 here is 48, but our own H2 is 50. I mean, that's just about the same size, but like I said, if you wanted it to be exactly 48 because there was a specific specification, you would do the same thing here, and you go here and then just bring that in and say 50 times what is going to give you 48, because what we have here is 50.0, so it's about 50. So, and that is going to be 0.96. So all I need to do is to just now go in, the font size is H2, okay, the variable is H2. So what I'm going to do is to go to the preset. I'm going to add a new preset, but what I want to do is just to copy this value from this preset and then just call it my custom H2. I'm not going to do for the other ones, but I'm just showing you how you can get that unique value. And I'm going to paste this here, but what I want to do is to change this to what was that, 0.96. okay, so I'm going to change this to 0.96, 0.96, and then I'm going to change this to H2. So this was H1. Make sure you change it to H2. Okay, and then for the advanced, now I have my preset, and for the advanced, you can now go to H2 and then select that custom H2, and it's just going to adjust to that size 48. Yeah, so we have that 48.0. So, but then it still scales down, okay, with the others. Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out is that at the lowest breakpoint, if you need this font size to be a specific font size at the smallest, you can override it, because that's the smallest you're ever going to get. You don't want it to get smaller than a particular unit. You can just go in straight into that preset. Because you're hooking into the preset, you can go into that preset. Let's say for this, we wanted the smallest size to be 40. So we are on the lowest breakpoint. For that preset, I can just go in there and give it 4 rem. And then it stays. And then for the second one, maybe we want it to be 24 at the smallest one. So I'm going to change the rem and just do 2.4. And then that gives it that, fixed size. Now, but I'm just going to remove that for now, because that's not what I want to do now. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all the process, but of course you get the idea. So you do the same thing to get your custom sizes, because you have a specific requirement for those sizes. You do that. Now we're going to move to the next thing, which is the typographies, the body typography. So we see we have 3 types of body. We have the normal body. Actually, we have more than 3 types. We have the normal body, we have the bigger body, let's say extra large, and we have body large, okay? So now what you want to do is, because you already have your normal body, okay? So let's duplicate this. I'm going to go into preset, I'm going to add custom typography, and then I'm going to call it body extra large. Now that is going to take care of my, extra large body font size. And we saw here that this extra large at the header here was 24 pixel. So I'm just going to give it 2.4 rem. And then that is our preset. And then I'm going to create another preset. And that is going to be for body large. And that one was 20 pixels. So I'm just going to give it 2 rem. Now I have those now. Now for this, if I come here, okay, for this text, I have a text on my website, and then I want to apply that. I can simply just apply the body extra large, and I have that. Let me duplicate this, and then for this one, I want it to be body large, and you see I can simply just do. So we now have preset for the typographies we're going to be using on the website. So you can do the same for all of them. You can do for these, okay. Now this is body, you can have the small. So I'm going to set up for, let's say, you can have for body small, and you can have the small is usually say 1.2 rem, that's 12 pixel. And then you can have, I can add another preset, and then you have extra small. So body extra small, and extra small is usually a minimum of 1 rem, which 10 pixel, which here in our case is 1 rem. And you can see that if you had like a footer element, you really don't need to bother trying to think of what to do. Just apply that to it. I have this, and then I want it to be the small. You apply it to it. Then you can go ahead and have multiple presets. You can have body medium, body bold, body large bold. Now it is important to have this, because the good thing about this is that you can apply this preset to even you can apply a heading preset to a normal text. Let's say, for instance, you have, for semantic reasons, you have maybe a particular area where you don't want to use a heading element, but you want the text to be big. But for semantic reasons, you don't want to use a heading element. You can use a regular text, okay? So I can add, let's say I come here and add a text, but I don't want that text to be a heading, right? I can go ahead and apply a heading preset to it. So I have a heading preset, my H2, and you can see that it gives me that H2 heading. See my H2, even though I don't have the same boldness, because I didn't set that in my preset. Let's see, the H2 boldness is say like 700. Let's remove it. Yeah, the H2 boldness is 700. So if you want to do that, you can. Now the text element has a different color, so you can, like, we don't have colors for the preset, which is one of the things I discussed with Louis, that I think we should have a color, but then you probably will still need to use the preset for the heading here, okay, for that text. And you have your H2 look, but a text element, so you don't need to use a heading when you don't need to use a heading. So that's just something to take note of. I'm gonna just remove that. So for the body small, let me just show you. For the body small, you have a body small regular, which is the default one, a body small medium. So you have a body small, okay, medium. Now mediums are usually 500 size, and then you have body small bold. Bolds are usually 700, okay, or 800 depending. Now don't forget to body small had 1.2 rem, so remember to always add that font size. Okay, the body small, yeah, had 1.2 rem, so body small medium will also have 1.2 rem, okay, and then the body small bold 1.2 rem. So now if I come here and I want to use a body small, but I want it to be bold, I can use a body small bold. So this setting up these presets, for your different font size. So for your body large, your body extra large, then you set up the different font weight, bold, medium, regular. This is just going to help you work the way Breakdance was designed to be used. Because Breakdance is not like Oxygen, it's not like it's not like the other class-based, utility class-based builders. This is designed to give you a unique workflow, and I'm showing you how to get the best out of it, and it's going to make your work extremely fast. So I think we have covered most of the settings, and this is, I wouldn't recommend that you put a general transition duration for your elements for the side wide. I really wouldn't recommend it because for performance, I think that you should always attach the property to the transition that you want to do. But then if you don't really care about performance, maybe it doesn't really matter, you can put a default value, let's say 300 milliseconds for your transitions, and then anytime you run a transition on the website, it's going to have that like this. If I put 1000, you can see how it's taking time to fade in. If I put 100, it's going to move in a lot faster. So you can put your default transition, but 400 is usually the sweet spot. Okay, so I'm going to save these, and so that's it, guys. That is how to set up the Breakdance global settings for an efficient and quick workflow. This is to help you work the way Breakdance was designed to be used, and I assure you that if you set up your stuff like this and you start working, you're going to see a huge difference in how fast you're building your site. I have another video on Breakdance and how to set up a 50% viewport width breakout image, so you can check it out here. It's a bit advanced, but then in the future I'm going to be bringing some really very basic Breakdance tutorials to you. I have a lot of Breakdance tutorials I want to do, so stick around, subscribe, hit the notification, and I'll see you again in the future. Have a great day.